What's up, everybody? It's Chris Kunz with the Rich Casno Real Estate Group. On today's episode of Real Estate Simplified, I am joined by Carolina Bates. Carolina is a owner, investor, flipper, developer in the, all over California and even statewide or nationwide.
Mainly California, Northern California.
Gotcha. So yeah, Carolina is here to talk to us a little bit about the investing side of real estate, about flipping, buy and holds, what sort of things that she identifies in a potential investment property that she's walking through. So we're very thankful to have her here to get all the information that we can get from her. So Lena, thank you very much for being here. I appreciate it.
Sure. No,
so just to start, you mostly would say you're a flipper. Is that a fair assessment?
Well, I started flipping, but then it turned into restoring 1920 homes when I moved here from the foothills. I lived over in Sonora, and that's where I started flipping, thinking I wasn't going to hold on to a project for very long until the market changed. Over here, I have found, my first house that Rich Casno got for me, besides this house, I did restore this one. I took it over from a guy that bought it and redid a couple things, like the kitchen was amazing and I knew I could do the rest of it. But Rich found a Spanish colonial that hadn't been lived in 10 years in Lamb Park, across from the park, 17th at 13th Ave, that took me a year. So that's not a flip.
Right,
I think,
okay.
I consider flips within 2 to 4 months maybe.
Whereas the Land Park house is more of a restoration.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And then I added 1,200 square feet, but I loved it.
Okay. So how many houses would you say that you flipped as opposed to restored?
Well,
over the course of your career?
I've basically flipped one here on 41st, but the rest of them were either Sonora, Jamestown, or Modesto. And I did 7 or 8 of those in the down market when things shifted. Starting in 2007, 2008, it was just starting to shift in 7.
Okay.
And then, a few of those I had to hold on to, and I rented them.
Now, how do you differentiate, and we'll kind of just get right into it, how do you differentiate between whether you're going to hold on to a property and rent it, or whether you just want to get it on the market, get it off the books, and sell it?
Well, ideally, I want to be able to turn it over as soon as possible, depending on the work that needs to be done. But when the market shifts in the middle of it, you have to make that determination.
Okay, so how many, and if this is too personal, you don't have to answer, how many investment properties do you still own to this day that you've bought throughout the course of your investing career?
I have invested in a couple up in the Sonoma County area, and I have one in Tahoe.
Okay.
But that one, that was a hard money loan that I loaned money for, and that one's coming due next month. So hopefully I won't
get that one off the books.
Yeah.
So tell us how you got started into real estate investing, flipping, redeveloping, restoring, all that kind of stuff.
It was kind of crazy. I started off staging. I learned from the person that came up with it, Barb Schwartz, up in the Northwest. She wanted someone to come in and tell her clients. She was a broker, realtor. And she wanted someone else to come in and tell her clients what they needed to clean out. So I learned the staging technique with people living in their homes. And then things just changed, especially in the Bay Area, where everybody took everything out and brought new things in. That's a whole different ballgame. And I did some of that. But for the most part, I loved being able to get homes ready for market and tell people what they need to do to make their house more desirable. And I did quite a few of those, but then when the market shifted up in the foothills, people couldn't afford it. So my contractors at the time were connecting me with people that were selling the family home, like their mother or father needed to go into an assisted living home, and their home needed to be restored in a shoestring, in a very economical way, because they didn't have a lot of money to spend in that position. And I love doing that. Just changing out carpet, tile, paint, fixing things, just getting them more solid and getting more for their money. So I did that for a while.
So you'd say, because I think for a lot of people that are looking to flip properties, it's about the relationships that you have. So if I'm hearing you correctly, your relationship as a stager with other realtors in the area, that's how you were able to kind of accumulate flip opportunities?
Exactly. I marketed myself through my staging, and then when the market shifted, I had agents, and then I worked with one in particular that brought me quite a few properties, and he brought me my first project that was only a couple years old that went back to the bank because the buyers thought the market was going to continue to go up, and they lost their job and couldn't afford the second that they had on it or the first. So that house was valued at $700. I got it for $450 and then put $20 into it to fix it.
That's cool.
Yeah,
and you can stop me. I know that when we get into the numbers side of things, some of the numbers you'll want to kind of hold closer to the chest. So just stop me if I'm asking too many questions or if I'm overstepping or anything like that.
I will let you know.
Okay, perfect. When you're first walking through an investment property, whether it's a hoarder house or it's been in the family for 60 years and just is all the original finishes, what are you looking for from a redevelopment standpoint right when you walk into a house? What are the first things you notice?
Well, if it has, that saying, good bones, if it has potential, that's key in
terms of layout,
every project. Sometimes it's the cost because I know I could change it, but for the most part, I'm most passionate about a house that has a good feel, like the Spanish Colonial that I first got with Rich. It had so many architectural features that were great, but it was compartmentalized like a lot of the older houses. It was a 1920 home, I think it was 1928. And it was on a big lot, so that was the other thing. I could extend, I added 1,200 square feet to that house. That was a big project. That took over a year. But at the end of the day, the market supported that, and I got top dollar for it. But it's the feel. It had these beams similar to my house. My house is 1920, 28 as well. Arches and just some, beautiful hardwood floors where I could restore them. Awesome railings inside that were original that I was able to keep. So there were a lot of things, but then the things that I had to replace, I chose things that fit within the style of the house and just made it better and a little more open and current.
And that's pulling from your experience as a stager, really, because really, to be able to walk into a house and see the vision for what a remodel would look like, especially in a compartmentalized 1920s, you've got some original finishes. So do you think your experience as a stager has kind of helped you progress into having that vision as soon as you walk in the door? Because for new investors, which a lot of the folks that are watching these videos are newer investors, to be able to have that vision is not something that initially clicks. So what do you think it is about you and your style that helps you kind of lay out that vision right when you walk in?
Well, there are always components to how anyone gets from A to B. And part of a big equation, my ex-husband and I restored a home that we bought. We restored two, actually, right off the bat. A little 3 and 2, and then we bought another one and restored it. And then we bought a house over in Groveland. And it was on a lake. I'm selling it right now if anybody wants that. It's a beautiful house. I've had it for over 20 years, but it needed to be opened up. So I think bit by bit I was learning, but I also love real estate and I immersed myself in it. I think that's the key. Just looking at everything, looking at homes that come on the market. The cool thing about Rich is he has connected me in zip codes that I care about. So I really understand, what the price is in that area, what the value is, and you have to weigh quite a few different things.
Okay, so we had a little bit of technical difficulties, but now that the camera is back up and running, Lena, I wanted to take you through a couple more questions just to get an idea of how you found your success in this market, and kind of the ways for people that want to get started can kind of get into the game. I know you don't necessarily want too much competition, but just so people can get a better understanding. When you first started out, there's a lot of options for people to either find a partner or to get a hard money loan or something like that. What would you recommend, and what did you do to get started when it came to financing your projects?
Well, I had the luxury of having some cash to spend. So yeah, I was the bank for myself.
Okay. And that's riskier too, a little
It
bit,
is,
right?
it is, especially in a house where the market changed and I had to hold it. That's a lot of money to be stuck in a property. So I wouldn't recommend that. But at the time, the interest rates weren't as great as they are now. So if you can get a loan, that's the way to go, right? I mean, the market, yeah.
And then how do you feel about partnerships versus getting a hard money loan?
It depends on the person, I guess. I've tried to do my own, but if you have a partner that adds value, that adds the value that you can't add to it, then I think it makes sense.
Okay.
And I do have partners on projects. And yeah, we work well together as long as we know our lane. Good.
So what would you say is the most important aspect of the real estate business, whether you're flipping or buying and holding, redesigning, anything like that?
Well, I think it's finding good people. It's really having a great agent. I've always worked with Rich. He's always told me straight up whether the margin's going to be there or not, which was amazing, especially when I moved here and didn't understand this market that well. But from that point on, finding a crew, my contractors that I work with, I trust them explicitly. They always tell me straight up. I don't have to watch them or critique them. Every week I pay my contractors. They give me receipts. We track it, really simply. And a lot of that has to do with trust. And I know they're going to do the best work. So it's having a team that isn't going to skimp, that's going to be honest. And that's the case in life. When you can trust your crew, that's everything. And the designers too, knowing, what is the best way to restore a home, what makes the most sense, what's going to go through the city. So that's one aspect that can be tricky here inside the city limits. Every project I've done, when I'm done with it, I always say I'm not going to do another project inside the city limits, and then I end up doing it, and I don't really understand why within the city limits versus outside the city limits. Like if you do something in Arden Park, it's a piece of cake to push through your plans. They're just chill. It's easier. I don't know why. I really don't. Maybe you and Rich can figure that out.
Homes and
A lot of it, I think, inside the city limits, they're more fees. They attach fees here and there. One of my last projects, they were going to charge me based on square footage park fees that were going to go up to almost $5,000 extra.
Jeez.
And I'm like, okay, you made that up or something. I don't know. It's kind of crazy. There are fees for schools, of course,
Sure.
Depending on if it's going to be a new build or a remodel. Those fees can be, usually, even if you're going to take a lot of the house down, it's made sense to a certain degree to call it a remodel because of all those fees. So you wouldn't get those park fees if it's a remodel, but a new build.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So but it changes within the city limits. Outside the city limits, it doesn't seem like they
It's easy.
mess with you as much.
A little bit more bureaucratic.
So yeah, if it were me, I would definitely try to work in that area because it'll save you some time, especially if it is a flip.
Okay, and that's the other thing too. Earlier you were talking about finding a zip code or two zip codes that you really wanted to focus your attention on. So I know that to be a good investment strategy. As far as finding properties, what sort of advice would you give up and coming or new investors as to how to find these fix and flip or really good buy and hold opportunities?
Well, I think that's studying the market. Picking an area where you like the homes, where like Arden Park has a lot of ranch style homes and single story homes, and if that's your thing, and that's a very popular style right now.
Mid-century modern.
Yes, and you can totally flip those in a way that probably won't cost you as much because the basic bones work for that layout, and those lots are a lot bigger. So you just have to understand what you can sell it for, and that means really investing time and energy and figuring out what the trend is there, watching the market.
Well, and typically, especially in a market like this, there's not many flip opportunities to find on the open
A little
market.
tricky right
so
now.
So how do you find ways to look at off-market opportunities, or otherwise find properties that other investors can't find? How do you find those projects?
Well, I have connections now to different people in the business. They'll show me things, but Rich is my main realtor, and he shows me things before they come on the market. And that's the good thing about having a group like Rich Kasno's group, because you get word of mouth because you have that experience and the reputation. So people are going to open up and say, hey, I think I'm going to do X, Y, Z. So knowing that before it actually hits the market is great. And then to be able to buy it off market is
So
key.
not only looking yourself, but finding a team that's
Yes.
also going to keep you in mind for fix and flip opportunities, redevelopment, that kind of stuff.
Exactly. So you could physically look and get zip codes sent to you. Like you could send, if you have a client that wants to flip, you send them the current listings daily, and they have to do the due diligence and really look at it and see if it makes sense. And then they can call you. I've done this with Rich. Just, hey, how do you feel about this? What do you think, I could do with it, blah, blah, blah. And he'll give me his honest advice. I think having people you trust that can give you that sound advice is imperative. It really is, because it's not all about you. It's a team effort.
Exactly. Okay. I wanted to, and I know you're kind of not necessarily on the outside looking in, but from where you see the market, where do you see it progressing over the next 12 months? How do you see the market responding to restrictions loosening and things like that? Because we are kind of, and this may be something seasonal that we're going through. I've seen a lot of people going on vacations, going to weddings, graduations, things like that.
Yeah,
And
things
with
are
that,
changing.
we've experienced a bit of a lull.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's probably seasonal, but I would love to get your take on where you see the market going over the next 12 months.
Yeah, I've been doing this since 2007, and it seems like summer, the heart of summer, especially right now because it's so stinking hot, always kind of slows down a little bit. And then as you go into fall, things pick up. But long term, do you have a crystal ball? Because
Yeah, exactly.
Seriously, it's been such
people
a
ask me that
ride.
question all the time, and I give them the same answer, but I am still curious because obviously you've had such a high level of success doing what you do. You've lived through these corrections. Like you said, you got started in 2007, 2008 when we were going through that dip. So I'm always curious to see kind of what people are looking at in the market as determining factors as to where things will go. But I am not going to hold you to it, and I know you don't have a crystal ball. But
Well, I'm
curious in your
optimistic
opinion.
things are going to correct themselves at some point, and that's the opportunity. When you start seeing things like interest rates are going to adjust. We've put a lot of money out into saving people and helping people because of the struggle of COVID. Excuse me, but also because I've been around a long time and I've seen markets fluctuate, it's going to correct itself at some point, right?
has to,
What goes
right.
up must come down. It will happen. I would really keep your finger on the market and really see. You'll see the adjustments. Hopefully, gradually, nothing dramatic will make them drop. But yeah, you have to be really careful.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like we've put ourselves in this situation, at least from the financial aspect where we were with the mortgage loan crisis of 07, 08. It doesn't feel like we're in. Buyers are much more vetted.
That won't happen again.
Right.
That was a unique
Right. So
chain of
yeah,
events.
a correction. A lot of people, because especially millennials or people my age, the only correction that we really lived through was the Great Recession. And so there's that recency bias to think of, oh, well, when it corrects again, it's going to do that same. So what we were just saying about markets normalizing, millennials are the only correction that we've seen was 07, 08, right? And there's a recency bias to believe that any other correction that comes after that will be very similar, but you were actually talking about, that may not end up being the case, and just making sure that we're cautiously optimistic, right?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a different correction. It's not going to be so dramatic, and it's not going to be dependent on mortgage. Well, interest rates are going to go up, but there isn't going to be that crash based on the mortgage industry doing
There's not
some
that
shady
funny
stuff.
money being lent this time
Yeah,
around.
exactly. Or thinking that you're going to keep throwing money out without really investigating the value, and because the properties are going to keep appreciating. That's something we have to be aware of, because right now I feel like this is pretty much the height of the market, and it might go up a little bit more, but if people are buying now and think they're still going to appreciate, you got to be a little careful.
So as an investor, how do you change your strategy based on that?
I'm cautious. You know, I really have to find things either off market. For the most part, what's worked for me is finding the jacked up house, the beater on a good street. Location, location, location. You know, I made a mistake buying one on a street that really wasn't the best street, but I got it for a good price, thought it would all be okay, and it took a while to sell. And it was a little scary. So I do think location is really, really key.
So that's the biggest thing, right? Is knowing the location that you want to be in and finding the worst looking property in that neighborhood and just basically going all in on that one.
Right. And depending on the age, you know, you're going to have to change out plumbing and electrical if it's, you know, 1920 home. But, you know, if it's just 30 years old, a lot of times you don't have to do that, but you want to modernize it and you are going to have to, you
bring
know,
it up to today's standards.
Yeah.
Right? Make sure everything can work the way it's supposed to.
Exactly.
And everything like that.
Yeah, in a perfect world, it'd be great if you could change out, you know, the counters and paint the cabinets. I've done that before, but, you know, having cabinets made isn't that big a deal. It's when you really have to rip up all the walls and redo plumbing and electrical that it gets costly. But there are properties out there that don't need to be completely gutted.
The thing about that too is having new electrical and plumbing, what you pay to do that doesn't necessarily equate to that amount of money in purchase price.
Yeah.
So that's tough too. It's for buyers to see that value is a little bit tougher, and so that eats into your bottom line as well, right?
Yeah, and that has to do with the area.
So it's about finding the right property in the right area, using the relationships that you have, making sure that you can find people that you can trust explicitly.
That's key.
And then just, you know, finding a great agent to find deals and being vigilant and understanding the market yourself, right?
Understanding it and really trusting your instincts, because usually they're right. Anytime I go against them, I'm like, I knew that. Why did I? You know, I think that's just the case in life with anything.
Just trusting yourself, right?
Yeah, exactly. But be cautious. But you have to take a risk to make money. So there's a balance there.
They say, the old saying, scared money don't make money.
Exactly. No, that's good.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining me. I appreciate you
welcome.
being here. Hopefully you guys got a lot of value out of the video and what Lena had to say. If you have any questions real estate related, give me a call, shoot me a text, send me a DM, whatever's easiest. Otherwise, I appreciate you guys tuning into this week's video. Hopefully we'll get a chance to see everybody soon. Stay safe out there and take care.